The sharpest blade is the one that cuts without effort. Welcome, wisdom seekers. Today we're diving into a battle of mindsets. Sigma females, the enigmatic independent forces that move through life on their own terms, seem to have a unique ability to dismantle a specific personality type without even trying. It's not about aggression, it's about contrast. The way they think, act, and navigate the world is like a natural solvent to a certain kind of person. And trust me, once you see the patterns, you'll never unsee them. But before we dissect this intriguing dynamic, make sure you hit subscribe to join the Wisdom Ways community, where we decode the unspoken rules of power, influence, and self-mastery. Now, let's get into it. 1. The Puppet Master Paradox. The Puppet Master is a personality type that thrives on control, manipulation, and subtle power plays. This type of person enjoys positioning themselves as the mastermind behind social interactions, relationships, and even workplace dynamics. They excel in reading people, predicting their responses, and subtly pulling strings to get what they want. They derive satisfaction from orchestrating situations in which others unknowingly play into their hands. However, Sigma females present an entirely different challenge to the puppet master. Unlike other personality types that can be easily influenced, Sigmas operate independently, making their own decisions without external pressures or manipulations. They are not reactive, they don't seek approval, and they refuse to be emotionally swayed by guilt, flattery, or coercion. This disarms the puppet master in a way they are not used to. When the puppet master attempts to manipulate a Sigma female, they find themselves hitting an invisible wall. She doesn't respond as expected, doesn't engage in mind games, and doesn't offer the reaction they need to feel powerful. The puppet master may try to provoke emotions, anger, jealousy, or insecurity, but the Sigma female remains unmoved. She sees through the psychological tactics and simply doesn't play along. This creates an existential crisis for the puppet master. Their power relies on their ability to control the emotions and actions of others, but with the Sigma, their tricks become ineffective. The more they try to manipulate, the more they expose their own weakness. A puppet master without control is nothing more than an ordinary person who relies on deception instead of genuine influence. In the end, the puppet master either retreats, realizing they have no power over the Sigma, or they spiral into frustration, desperately trying to regain their lost dominance. Either way, they are left dismantled, not because the Sigma attacked them, but because she simply refused to engage. 2. The Hollow Echo. The Hollow Echo is a personality type that thrives on external validation. They craft their identity based on how others perceive them, constantly seeking approval through social media, status symbols, and public recognition. Their self-worth is tied to being admired, envied, or acknowledged by others. They don't have a strong sense of self. Instead, they are an echo of societal expectations, always mirroring what they believe will make them look valuable. Sigma females, on the other hand, are the exact opposite. They operate from a deep sense of self-awareness and internal validation. They don't need applause or approval to feel worthy, and they certainly don't build their identity around what others think. This creates a stark contrast when the Hollow Echo encounters a Sigma female. At first, the Hollow Echo may try their usual tactics, boasting about their achievements, exaggerating their social status, or fishing for compliments. But the Sigma remains unimpressed. She sees through the superficiality and recognizes the insecurity behind the performance. She doesn't engage in the game of validation, leaving the Hollow Echo without the response they desperately seek. This lack of engagement is unsettling for the Hollow Echo. They are used to people reinforcing their need for validation, either through admiration or envy. But the Sigma female simply doesn't care. She doesn't react to their bragging, doesn't feel the need to compete, and certainly doesn't offer empty compliments just to boost their ego. Over time, this interaction becomes a mirror for the hollow echo, forcing them to confront their lack of self-identity. Without external validation, they feel empty, because that's exactly what they are. The presence of a Sigma female exposes this emptiness in a way that no one else does. They may try to dismiss her as cold or arrogant, but deep down, they know the truth. They have built their entire identity on a fragile foundation. Some hollow echoes will retreat, feeling uncomfortable in the presence of a Sigma. Others may lash out, trying to discredit her in an attempt to regain a sense of control. But no matter how they react, the reality remains the same. Sigma females effortlessly dismantle the illusion that the hollow echo has spent their entire life maintaining. The entitled spectator. The entitled spectator is the type of person who expects everything to be handed to them without effort. They believe they deserve success, attention, and admiration simply because they exist. This entitlement often stems from an inflated sense of self-worth, reinforced by a society that rewards mediocrity with constant praise. They demand recognition, yet they contribute little to earn it. Sigma females, however, live by an entirely different code. They believe in merit, personal growth, and self-sufficiency. They do not wait for opportunities to be handed to them. They create their own. This naturally puts them at odds with the entitled spectator, who expects others to cater to their needs and validate their perceived importance. When the entitled spectator encounters a Sigma, they often react in one of two ways. The first is confusion. The Sigma female's independence and unwillingness to cater to entitled behavior disrupt the spectator's worldview. They are used to people either indulging them or resenting them, but the Sigma does neither. She simply ignores their demands and continues on her path. The second reaction is frustration. The entitled spectator is not accustomed to being dismissed or overlooked, and Sigma females do exactly that. They do not entertain baseless entitlement, and they certainly do not reward laziness. The more the spectator demands recognition, the less the Sigma engages, making their presence insignificant. Over time, the entitled spectator either learns a hard lesson that respect and admiration must be earned, or they spiral into bitterness, resenting the Sigma for refusing to acknowledge their self-imposed importance. Either way, the Sigma female dismantles their delusion without saying a single word. The overcompensator spiral. The overcompensator is an individual who hides deep-seated insecurity by constantly trying to prove themselves. They speak louder than necessary, exaggerate their achievements, and always seek validation. Their entire identity is built around convincing others and themselves that they are competent, desirable, and superior. But beneath the bravado lies a fragile ego that cannot handle rejection, indifference, or true confidence in others. Sigma females effortlessly disrupt the overcompensator's tactics. Unlike others who might be fooled by their exaggerated confidence, the Sigma sees right through it. She recognizes insecurity when she sees it and, more importantly, she doesn't feed into it. While the overcompensator is used to people either challenging them, which fuels their need to prove themselves, or praising them, which reinforces their act, the Sigma does neither. She remains neutral, unmoved by the noise, which leaves the overcompensator scrambling for attention. This lack of engagement is a silent challenge. The overcompensator wants validation, whether through admiration or opposition, but the Sigma female offers neither. Her indifference forces them to either reflect on their insecurity or escalate their behavior in a desperate attempt to provoke a response. Over time, the overcompensator may feel exposed in the presence of a Sigma. Without someone to impress or outshine, their identity feels hollow. They may try harder to prove themselves, talking excessively about their accomplishments or subtly trying to diminish the Sigma's presence. But none of it works. Sigma females don't engage in ego games. Eventually, the overcompensator either self-destructs, overwhelmed by their own insecurity, or they are forced to confront their need for constant validation. Either way, the Sigma female once again dismantles a personality type without lifting a finger. 5. The social illusionist. The social illusionist is someone who builds their identity entirely on external perception. They carefully curate their image to fit into social groups, adapting their personality, opinions, and even values to align with what is most socially acceptable or advantageous at the moment. They thrive on groupthink, using their ability to blend in and manipulate social circles to their benefit. Popularity, status, and belonging define their sense of self. Sigma females, however, operate outside of this framework entirely. They are lone wolves by nature, unconcerned with social hierarchies or fitting into pre-established roles. They do not shapeshift to gain approval or access to social circles. This fundamental difference creates an unavoidable tension when a social illusionist encounters a Sigma. At first, the social illusionist may attempt to assess the Sigma, trying to categorize her into a social role, but this proves difficult. Sigma females don't conform to traditional labels. They are not driven by a need to belong, making them unpredictable and hard to manipulate. This frustrates the social illusionist, who relies on being able to influence others based on shared social dynamics. When their usual tactics fail, the social illusionist may try to undermine the Sigma in subtle ways. They might spread rumors, attempt to exclude her from social events, or even frame her independence as arrogance. But none of these strategies have the desired effect. The Sigma female simply does not care. She does not seek validation from the group, and because of this, she cannot be controlled through social pressure. The presence of a Sigma female exposes the illusion that the social illusionist has built their life around. Without an audience to manipulate, without a crowd to impress, their social strategy collapses, and nothing is more terrifying to them than irrelevance. 6. The energy leech. The energy leech is a person who thrives on emotional dependency. They drain the time, emotions, and mental energy of those around them, constantly seeking attention, reassurance, or help without ever offering anything in return. Whether they play the victim, create unnecessary drama, or demand endless emotional labor, they are a constant source of exhaustion for those who engage with them. Sigma females, however, have an impenetrable boundary system. They do not allow their energy to be drained by unnecessary emotional baggage, and they do not entertain people who take more than they give. This makes them a nightmare for the energy leech, who relies on emotional access to others in order to function. When an energy leech encounters a Sigma, they will often attempt to test her boundaries by oversharing, playing the victim, or seeking constant validation. They expect the Sigma to provide emotional support as others do, but instead, they are met with a firm, unapologetic boundary, one that does not bend to guilt or manipulation. This rejection is deeply unsettling for the energy leech. They are used to people feeling obligated to care for them, to provide them with energy and attention. But the Sigma does not fall into this trap. Instead, she remains distant, refusing to engage in emotional vampirism. The energy leech is left without their usual fuel, forcing them to either move on or confront their own emotional self-sufficiency. Over time, this creates an unavoidable reality check. Either the energy leech learns to become more independent, or they find themselves continuously repelled by Sigma females, unable to extract the emotional support they so desperately crave. 7. The obsessive validator. The obsessive validator is someone whose entire existence revolves around external approval. They seek constant reassurance, compliments, and acknowledgement from others to feel a sense of self-worth. Their mood fluctuates based on how much validation they receive, and they often become emotionally unstable when they don't get enough attention. They are not just looking for compliments, they need validation to function. Sigma females, however, do not engage in validation loops. They do not dish out compliments just to make others feel good, nor do they entertain insecurity-driven behaviors. A Sigma female values authenticity, and she does not play into the societal game of constant reassurance. This alone disrupts the obsessive validator's entire approach to social interaction. When an obsessive validator encounters a Sigma, their usual strategies don't work. They may try self-deprecating humor, fishing for compliments, or subtly seeking validation through comparisons. But the Sigma remains indifferent. She does not engage in unnecessary flattery, and she certainly does not feed into emotional dependency. This lack of engagement is unsettling for the validator. At first, they may intensify their efforts, becoming louder, more dramatic, or even exaggerating their struggles in an attempt to get a reaction. When that fails, frustration sets in. They may accuse the Sigma of being cold or uncaring, simply because she refuses to participate in their validation-seeking cycle. But the truth is, Sigma females understand something the obsessive validator does not. Real confidence comes from within. By refusing to entertain their constant need for reassurance, Sigma females force them to confront their own insecurities. Some will take this as an opportunity to grow, while others will spiral deeper into their need for external validation. Either way, the Sigma has exposed the weakness in their mindset without even trying. The fragile ego titan. The fragile ego titan is the type of person who presents themselves as dominant, confident, and unshakable. But their confidence is nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. They rely on being seen as powerful, intimidating, or superior to maintain their self-image. However, their confidence is fragile. Any sign of disinterest, disrespect, or challenge can send them into a defensive rage. Sigma females, on the other hand, do not operate within traditional power dynamics. They do not submit to authority figures just because they demand it, nor do they seek to assert dominance over others. They simply exist in their own realm, unaffected by external validation or intimidation. This in itself is a direct threat to the fragile ego titan. When a fragile ego titan encounters a Sigma female, they expect her to either admire them or challenge them, but she does neither. Instead, she remains indifferent, unfazed by their status, achievements, or aggressive presence. This neutrality is something the Titan cannot handle. They rely on reactions, either fear, admiration, or submission, to maintain their self-image. As a result, they may attempt to provoke the Sigma. They might exaggerate their power, boast about their achievements, or subtly try to undermine her confidence. But none of it works. Sigma females do not play status games, nor do they feel the need to prove themselves to insecure people. Over time, this realization eats away at the Titan. Their entire identity is based on external validation, and when the Sigma refuses to acknowledge their superiority, they are left feeling exposed. Some will lash out, trying to discredit the Sigma in a desperate attempt to regain control. Others will retreat, unable to handle the psychological discomfort of being irrelevant in her presence. In the end, the fragile ego titan is dismantled, not because the Sigma fought back, but because she simply did not care. 9. The drama conductor. The drama conductor is someone who thrives on emotional turbulence. They are the architects of unnecessary chaos, the ones who stir up conflict where there is none, and the perpetual victims in their own carefully crafted narratives. They live for attention, whether it comes in the form of sympathy, outrage, or validation. If a situation is calm, they will find a way to introduce disorder, just to keep themselves at the center of it. Sigma females, however, exist in a state of controlled detachment. They do not feed into emotional theatrics, nor do they waste energy on pointless drama. This makes them an existential threat to the drama conductor, whose entire strategy relies on people engaging in their spectacle. When a drama conductor meets a Sigma, their usual methods fall flat. They may attempt to provoke her with gossip, exaggerated conflicts, or emotionally charged situations, expecting her to either react or take a side. But the Sigma remains unmoved. She does not participate in meaningless disputes, nor does she entertain manipulative storytelling. This lack of engagement frustrates the drama conductor. Without an audience, their performance loses its power. They may escalate their tactics, creating even bigger conflicts, playing the victim more aggressively, or attempting to pull the Sigma into their web of chaos. But no matter what they do, the Sigma female refuses to play along. Eventually, the drama conductor is left with two choices: either find a new audience who will engage with their chaos, or confront the emptiness that exists without it. And nothing is more unsettling to them than realizing that without drama, they have no real identity. The masked martyr. The masked martyr is the person who weaponizes kindness and sacrifice as a control tactic. They constantly remind others of what they have done for them, using guilt and obligation to maintain emotional leverage. They do not give freely, they give with the expectation of something in return. Whether it's admiration, loyalty, or emotional dependency, their generosity is merely a transaction in disguise. Sigma females, however, are not susceptible to this type of manipulation. They recognize that true kindness does not come with conditions, and they refuse to be emotionally indebted to anyone. This makes them a nightmare for the masked martyr, whose tactics only work on those who can be guilt-tripped into compliance. When a masked martyr encounters a Sigma, they may initially try to offer favors, gifts, or excessive support, expecting gratitude and emotional attachment in return. But the Sigma does not take the bait. She is appreciative, but she does not feel obligated. She does not fall into the trap of emotional debt, nor does she allow herself to be controlled by guilt. Over time, this dynamic exposes the masked martyr's true motives. Without the ability to manipulate through generosity, they begin to show their resentment. They may claim the Sigma is ungrateful or selfish, simply because she refuses to be controlled. They may even attempt to turn others against her, painting themselves as the victim of her supposed coldness. But none of it works. The Sigma female stands firm in her boundaries, refusing to engage in guilt-driven power plays. Eventually, the masked martyr either moves on to someone more susceptible or is forced to face the reality that their kindness was never truly selfless. Sigma females don't destroy these personality types through confrontation. They do it by simply existing as their authentic selves, by refusing to engage in the games, by being immune to emotional traps, and by living in a state of self-sufficiency that renders these toxic tactics ineffective. It's not about power, it's about presence. And if you want to develop that kind of presence, stick around, wisdom seekers, because here we decode the hidden dynamics of influence, resilience, and the unshakable mindset. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.